right, I wanted to finally give you guys a tour of my new space. So this has been kind of months in the making since we moved from Ohio. We moved in mid to late July is when our stuff came, and none of this was here. This desk came from our prior home, and so did my sewing desk. These were all new. They're IKEA. My prior sewing room, which you can see the tour, I'll link it in the description, had built-in bookcases. And these were needing to be assembled. I failed to mention to my husband that they were 12 to 15 boxes. I did not realize that myself. It took quite a long time to put them together, but goodness do I love them. These are the IKEA Havstas, and we have them open here because there's an outlet behind there where we can plug stuff in. I love these. We each have two, so I have this one and this one, and I've kind of taken over this one, and then my husband has those two for his crafting. So let's go ahead and start here for the tour. In this cabinet is where I keep my fabric scraps. So in my last house is when I came up with this. They are glass jars. They are absolutely beautiful, and I sort them by color. I do not cut my scraps down into different sizes. I just put them in here. I love that they are both functional and beautiful. These Havstas, you can actually customize them any number of ways. Because I wanted my scrap jars to still show, I chose glass fronts, but they're still not as open as the bookcases that we had in our prior home. So I actually really like the closed storage. Down here is where I store my extra sewing machine. This is the very first one I had, and I keep it for my little girl. Then I have this vintage antique thread cabinet. It's where I keep my threads. This one's empty, but I have some thread in here, and then down below is where I keep my sewing feet for both machines. In this container is where I have the pedals for my other machine. This is the stand for it. I sometimes put binding on there for filming or pictures. And then down here, I have my sewing machine cover. I have my Aliso mini iron, and then my Kona swatch sample that I am working on. This will be a project I will do this winter, and then I will film it. Now in this one over here, my little girl keeps her sewing basket, and then I have large backings. I routinely buy backings that are from Target that are sheet sets when they're on clearance, and I go ahead and pick them up so that way I have backings. In this one, again, some more backings. I actually have this for a quilt I had bought one of my patterns earlier in the year and didn't get to it. These are for my binding stash. I have them separate from my fabric stash so that way I can remember to make them. In this cabinet over here, I have all my project baskets. I actually need to go through them because a lot of them are completed. I do have 3 quilts in here that I'm planning on finishing. They are works in progress, and I typically do not like to keep works in progress at all. So I am anxious to get those done. 2 are from some quilt-alongs I ran earlier this year, and in one of them I ended up making another whole entire quilt as a sample for Art Gallery Fabrics. And then the other ones we ended up moving, so I just didn't get to it. But what I do when I start a quilt is have a fabric project basket, and the pattern goes in there and any blocks and then the fabric that I'm going to be using. This is one of the ones that I need to finish. These are actually some panel stuffed animals I'm going to be making for my kids this Christmas. And here's where I keep my fabric stash. I only recently started collecting fabric. I was very against it just because I don't like clutter, and my husband helped me to see I need to see it not as projects that have to be completed, but as a resource for future projects. And given all that's gone on in the last few years, I realized I definitely need a stash because you can't always get to a shop. They're not always open, and shipping isn't always reliable. Down here I have my block subscription magazines, and then just my quilting books, as well as some favorite home decor books. The fabric in here, these are all yardage, so they're for backings mostly. A couple of them are some stripes I have yet to make, but these are solids I tend to keep on hand, so that way when I want to make a quilt I can do so. And then if I find some fabric that I like that's on sale, I'll get 4 or 5 yards and use it for a backing as well. This is an antique ironing board I picked up in Ohio, and I have yet to find a top for it. I really wanted to find a wool mat, a pressing mat, so that I could actually use it, but for now it's just a lovely piece of decor. To the right is my design wall. This is invaluable to me because I used to use the floor, and then I got a design wall with batting at my last house, and I loved it. In this one, I knew I wanted something that wasn't just batting stapled to the wall. So I used foam core board, and it was about 1 inch wide. Essentially, it's foam core board, 2 sheets. We taped it together, and then we used a flannel sheet, or flannel extra wide fabric rather, from Hobby Lobby, and taped it on there. The thing that I love most is the frame. I use lattice boards, 1x. I painted them, and it just gives it a little bit more finished look. They are held up by some L brackets on the bottom, and the top it is secure. And then I can even put finished quilts that are quite heavy by just pinning them to the top. Of course, my sewing desk that I could not get along without. This was a Castaway dining table. I talked about this in the earlier video. My friend was getting rid of it. My father-in-law and mother-in-law stayed with us last winter, and he's super handy. So I had done a IKEA table hack and cut out and built a brace for my sewing machine, but I wanted something sturdier and I wanted something bigger. When we came across this, he was able to help me with that. So we stripped it, and I sealed it and stained it. My father-in-law cut out the shelf. It is supported underneath by brackets. The thing that I really love about this is my Janome is actually at an angle, and I didn't want it at an angle. He was able to fix the shelf so that it makes it perfectly level. Over here on the bottom part, I wanted to be able to use my knee lifter, so he went ahead and drilled a hole perfectly, so that way I can just stick it in there, and then I can go ahead and use my knee lifter. I have a dining chair that I use, the kids in the background are playing, that I use for my sewing because it really makes you sit up straight, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want any slouching. Over here is where I keep my notions that I need. So I have my seam ripper, my TV remote, little tiny scissors, my sewing machine cleaner brush, and then my diagonal tape. Right here is where I have the last 2 quilts that I bound. I keep the binding, and then I actually add it to my scrappy binding. I have this binding bowl that I normally keep up there, and then today I had pulled it down because I wanted to add those bindings to it. I got these from Etsy, from Squirrel & Co. Quilt Company, and it's just super fun. I just add whatever binding that's extra and put it on here, and then eventually it'll get big enough for a scrappy binding. On my desk, I always keep my Aliso Pro iron and my wool mat, and then that way I can just press without ever having to get up. So my sewing room is actually located in the lower level. It is a full walkout basement, so we have really tall ceilings in here. They're about 10 feet. These gorgeous windows and large door. I absolutely love being able to sew out here. And then when the kids are playing in the forest, I can open a window and it's right there. For perspective, real quick here, everyone always asks where my sewing room is. So this is where we do our homeschooling. This is kids' craft and toy storage. And then we have board games back there. And then we're working on the library area here. This is my batting and storage area. It's also my cutting table. I have not put the batting roll on when I ran out because I wanted to be sure to film a tutorial. A lot of you have asked how on earth I do it. So that will be coming up. But essentially it is stored on a roll in there. My big 25-yard roll, super easy. These are 2 quilts I have yet to bound. So that's where they are. The way we built this, again, I showed it on my last tour, but these are trestle legs from IKEA. This is an IKEA dresser. My father-in-law cut the legs so that it is higher than counter height, but lower than what it would have been with this. I think we ended up with 37 inches for me, because I'm a little bit on the taller side. And then the topper is 2 edge-glued pine boards, and we stained them, sealed them. They're connected with table latches in the front and the back, so that way it makes one entire top. And then I actually have a printable PDF list along with the full tutorial on my blog. I will be sure to link that in the description. So over here you can see I did the kids tabletop to match. This is where I also have my cutting mat. On this, I took it from Target. It was a, I don't know, like an entry organizer, and I've just gone ahead and screwed it underneath. So the pattern that I am working on, I stick in there. I like to keep my desk clear at all times. Over here is where I have my cutting rulers. And then on this side, I took the other part to the envelope thing I just showed you and screwed it to under here. So I can put my scissors. And then again, this is another fabric swatch I am working on with Art Gallery solids. So I will be filming that and showing it as well. I have a hand quilting hoop there. And on this back part, I tend to keep batting scraps. And then that's an extra batting sheet I need to fold and store away. So I get a lot of questions about why this is facing this way instead of this way. The reason is because of the TV. At night is when I get most of my sewing time. My husband and I stream videos, we watch movies, all of that shows. And I wanted to be able to face up when I am trimming and pressing and cutting fabric. So in these drawers here is where I keep my fat quarters. These are separated by some drawer dividers from the Container Store. They're spring loaded, so they're super flexible. I have them in every drawer. These ones are bigger pieces I've yet to organize. I had pulled some fat quarters from here, so I gotta reorganize that. But I mostly have seasonal. Like I said, I am just starting to build my stash. Over here, I have, trying to get my shadow out, I have some more stash. These are the Grunge Basics. And then these are Stacy Shoes Go Car Go. And these are pillowcases I'm going to be making for my kids this winter. There was a quilt shop in Ohio that they loved them, and they each had a Pokemon one, and then this one was the Go Car Go for this little guy who loves cars, so that ended up being just perfect. In these drawers below, it's kind of where I keep other things. So I have more drawer dividers. I have some embroidery hoops because I want to teach the kids to do that. Block hangers for pictures, and then some panels that are toy panels. And then I am attempting to learn cross stitch at some point. Over here on these drawers where I keep my pins, you can see I have a lot of storage opportunities still. And then my notions, these are organizers from Target that were just in the dollar section. I can keep my marking tools, my rotary cutters, refills, super easy. And then over here, again, these are just drawer organizers, but it helped me keep my pearl cotton thread, camera lens, quilting gloves, and then I have some hand quilting templates, free motion templates, and then this is embroidery thread. In the final drawer, I have my camera box, and then these are the leftovers I am still working on from the fabric swatches. that about wraps it up. I did not go into detail about how I made these things. I did do that with my first video that I have from my prior one. If you have any questions though, I am always happy to answer them. So please go ahead and leave some comments or questions in the comments area. And until next time.
Is this all that you dreamed it'd be? Ending up here, ending up with me. You could have gone anywhere, been anywhere.